Welcome to a deep dive created just for you. Today, we're going to be looking at a report from the Central Bank of Honduras,
Okay.
focusing on Honduran migrants in Spain.
Sounds good.
Over the last decade, Spain has become a really significant destination for Honduran migrants.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this report has a ton of survey data,
It does.
and it gives us some pretty remarkable insights into their lives there.
Yeah, it's really fascinating.
So today, our mission is to kind of distill the most interesting and important knowledge from this survey.
Right.
It was conducted this year at Honduran consulates in Spain.
Okay.
And we really want to give you a good understanding of this migration trend and the impact it's having.
A shortcut to understanding.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a major demographic shift
It is.
between 2014 and 2023.
Okay.
The Honduran population in Spain
Yeah.
saw a surge of 360.4%.
Wow.
That's massive.
That's huge.
That's a jump from just over 38,000 to more than 177,000 people.
Okay.
So to put that in perspective, Spain is now the second most popular destination for Honduran migrants worldwide,
Wow.
only behind the U.S.
Okay, so this deep dive is about understanding a really significant global movement.
It is.
Okay, so where do we even begin to unpack
Well,
this?
a good place to start is with the survey itself.
Okay.
The report is based on 996 individuals
Okay.
who visited Honduran consulates in Spain.
Okay.
And what's really interesting about that is that it's statistically representative of the Honduran population in Spain
Oh, wow.
over the age of 15,
Okay.
with a 95% confidence level and a margin of error of plus or minus 1.8%.
That's a pretty small margin of error.
It is.
Okay.
And that means that the trends that we're going to be discussing today are very likely to reflect the reality
Okay.
for most adult Honduran migrants in Spain.
That gives us a really solid foundation.
It does.
So what did the survey tell us about the demographics of these migrants?
Well, one of the first things that jumps out is the gender distribution.
Okay.
70% of the respondents were female,
Wow.
compared to only 30% male.
Okay.
Now, interestingly, this closely aligns with the overall Honduran population in Spain.
Okay.
According to 2023 data from the Spanish National Statistics Institute.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So 70% women.
70% women.
What about their age?
Well, the average age of those surveyed was 36.
Okay.
Now, if we dig a little deeper.
Yeah.
The average age for women was slightly older at 37,
Uh-huh.
while for men it was a bit younger at 34.
Okay, so predominantly women and a relatively young average age.
Exactly.
What about how long these individuals have been living outside of Honduras?
Yeah, well, the average time living abroad for the survey respondents was 7 years.
Okay.
And what's notable is that nearly half,
Yeah.
49.5%,
Okay.
had been in Spain for 5 years or less.
Okay, so a pretty significant
Very recent.
recent wave of migration.
Exactly.
Okay. And geographically, where in Honduras were these migrants originally from?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Were there specific regions that saw more emigration to Spain?
Definitely, the survey showed that the majority of respondents came from just a few key departments in Honduras.
Okay.
Francisco Morazan,
Yeah.
where the capital Tegucigalpa is located,
Okay.
accounted for the largest portion at 36.6%.
Okay.
Cortez, home to San Pedro Sula, was next at 14.7%,
Mm-hmm.
followed by Choluteca at 9.5%,
Okay.
Atlantida at 6.4%,
Oh.
and El Paraíso at 6.3%.
Okay, so it seems like migration to Spain is concentrated among people
Absolutely.
originating from these specific areas.
Yes,
Okay, that gives us a much clearer picture of who these migrants are.
it does.
Now, let's talk about their reasons for making the move.
Okay.
What were the primary factors driving this migration?
Well, when asked about their main reasons for migrating,
Yeah.
the top responses were improving quality of life,
Okay.
cited by 31.3%,
Uh-huh.
and unemployment at 24.1%.
Okay.
However, it seems that the driving forces have actually evolved over time.
Oh, okay, interesting.
So for those who migrated over 20 years ago, reuniting with family was a much more significant motivator.
Okay, that makes sense.
Whereas more recent migrants,
Yeah.
those who arrived in the last decade,
Hmm.
were more likely to cite unemployment and a lack of security in Honduras as their primary reasons.
So different circumstances, different time periods
Exactly.
often shape migration decisions.
Absolutely.
Okay, now a critical aspect for any migrant is their legal standing in their new country.
Right.
So what did the report reveal about the legal status of Honduran migrants in Spain?
Well, this is where we see a really interesting contrast,
Right.
particularly when we compare it to Honduran migration to the United States.
Okay.
In Spain, a significant 62.7% of respondents
Okay.
reported having regular migratory status,
Okay.
essentially meaning they have the legal right to be in Spain.
Okay.
This is very different to the U.S.,
Uh-huh.
where the report indicates that irregular status,
Right.
meaning they lack legal authorization to be in the country,
Right.
is much more common among Honduran migrants at 74.6%.
Wow, that's a big difference.
It is.
What could account for that?
Well, that's a really interesting question.
Yeah.
And the report doesn't really go into detail on the reasons,
Right.
but we can speculate on a few possibilities.
Okay.
It could be due to differences in immigration policies.
Right, between Spain and the U.S.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The availability of pathways to legal residency in Spain,
Okay.
or even the circumstances under which people migrate to each country.
Makes sense.
What the report does highlight, though,
Right.
is that a higher percentage of women in Spain,
Okay.
23.2%,
Okay.
had obtained Spanish citizenship compared to men at 16.1%,
Uh-huh.
while a larger proportion of men, 41.8%, reported irregular status compared to women at 35.4%.
So an interesting gender dynamic there.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's shift our focus to how these migrants are supporting themselves in Spain.
Okay.
What kind of work are they primarily engaged in?
The most common economic activity reported was domestic services.
Okay.
Things like cleaning and caregiving. This sector employed 43.5% of the survey respondents.
Wow.
And overwhelmingly, 96% of the workers in this sector were women.
Wow. Almost all women.
Yeah.
Okay, other notable sectors.
Hotels and restaurants at 11.6%.
Oh, okay.
Private construction at 11%.
Uh-huh.
And commerce at 6.2%.
So a clear concentration in the domestic services sector,
There is...
particularly for women.
Yeah, definitely.
What about their income levels?
Well, the average monthly income reported was $1,362.2 US dollars.
Okay.
However, there was a noticeable gender pay gap.
Okay.
Women reported an average monthly income of $1,254.8 US dollars,
Okay.
while men earned more at $1,610.3 US dollars.
Okay. A difference of about 28.3%.
Significant.
Yeah.
And interestingly, despite the high number of people working in domestic services,
Yeah.
this sector had the lowest average income at $1,125.8 US dollars.
Right.
On the other hand.
Transportation workers reported the highest average income at $1,697.8 US dollars.
So the type of work directly impacts income.
Absolutely. And there's a gender dimension to that as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, a crucial element of the migration story for many is the act of sending money back home.
Yeah, remittances.
So what did the survey findings reveal about remittance patterns among Honduran migrants in Spain?
Well, the survey found that 64.1% of respondents regularly send money back home,
Okay.
which they defined as more than once a year.
Yep.
The average monthly remittance was $289.2 US dollars.
Okay.
And similar to income,
Yeah.
there was a slight difference between genders, with women sending an average of $297.2 US dollars per month compared to $268.6 US dollars for men.
It's striking that even with a lower average income,
Yeah,
women are on average sending slightly more money home.
they are.
What could be the reasons for that?
That's a good question, and it probably speaks to a number of factors.
Yeah.
It could reflect different priorities and how income is allocated.
Okay.
Stronger perceived obligations to family in Honduras, or perhaps different levels of personal expenses in Spain. When we look at it as a percentage of their income,
Yeah.
the difference becomes even clearer.
Go ahead.
Women allocate a larger portion of their average monthly income to remittances at 23.7%,
Okay.
compared to men at 16.7%.
So they're really making a significant
Absolutely.
financial contribution
Yeah.
and commitment
Yes.
to their family.
Exactly.
What other factors seem to influence the amount of money people sent home?
Well, the length of time living abroad appeared to play a role.
Okay.
Those who had lived abroad for less than 5 years
Yeah.
tended to send the highest average amounts,
Okay.
around $300.6 US dollars per month.
Uh-huh.
This average amount seemed to decrease with longer residency in Spain.
Okay. Interesting.
Interestingly, the report notes a contrasting trend in the U.S.,
Okay.
where those with longer residency often send more,
Uh-huh.
possibly indicating greater economic stability over time.
Makes sense.
And also, it's worth noting that those working in domestic services,
Yeah.
despite their lower average incomes,
Right.
reported the highest average monthly remittance amount at $307.3 US dollars.
Okay, so almost counterintuitive.
Yeah,
It really emphasizes that priority of sending money home.
absolutely.
even for those in more precarious economic situations.
Exactly.
How are these vital funds typically transferred?
The most common method is through remittance companies,
Okay.
which are often located within small businesses like phone shops or local convenience stores.
Okay.
This was the preferred option for 87.6% of respondents.
Wow. Good.
Mobile applications were used by 6.7%,
Uh-huh.
and traditional bank transfers in Spain only accounted for a small percentage,
Okay.
3.3%.
So a reliance on specialized transfer services.
Yes.
What about receiving the money?
Once the money arrives in Honduras, the vast majority, 91.2% of beneficiaries, collect it from commercial banks and credit unions.
Okay, so traditional banking institutions.
For receiving.
For receiving.
Exactly.
Okay, so a clear preference for specific methods of transfer.
Yeah.
What do we know about who's actually receiving these funds in Honduras?
Sure.
And what that money is used for?
The primary recipients are overwhelmingly close family members.
Oh.
The mother was the most cited recipient at 41.9%,
Okay.
followed by children at 22.5%, and the father at 13.7%.
Okay.
So together, those three relationships account for over 78%
Okay.
of those receiving remittances.
And in terms of how the money is used?
The vast majority, 79.9%, goes towards covering basic necessities like food and clothing.
It really highlights that direct impact
Yeah.
that these migrants are having on their families back home.
Exactly.
The report also touched on remittances in kind.
Yeah.
What does that involve?
So in addition to sending money,
Uh-huh.
30.8% of respondents reported sending goods or paying for services
Yeah.
for their families in Honduras.
Like what?
So that includes things like sending boxes of clothes, food, medicine,
Okay.
and also digital forms of support like topping up mobile phone credit.
Oh, wow. Okay, so it's not just cash transfers.
No, it's much broader than that.
It's really a multifaceted approach
It is.
to supporting families back in Honduras.
Yeah.
What about financial inclusion
Okay.
for these migrants or their families in Honduras?
Right.
Do they have access to formal financial products?
Well, interestingly, despite the significant flow of remittances,
Yeah.
only 26.7% of respondents reported having access to financial products in Honduras.
Okay.
And this was primarily savings accounts.
So that suggests a potential gap
Yeah,
in financial inclusion.
absolutely.
Cool. Something to consider for future development initiatives.
Definitely.
Looking ahead, what are the long-term intentions of these migrants in Spain?
Okay.
Do a significant portion plan to return to Honduras?
Well, the survey found that 30.1% of respondents do plan to return to Honduras permanently
Okay.
at some point, with an average time frame of 9 years.
9 years. Okay.
However, a larger proportion, 53.9%,
That-
reported having no plans to return,
Okay.
and 16% were undecided.
So while a notable number do envision a future back in Honduras,
Yeah,
the majority seem to be establishing
it seems so.
more permanent lives in Spain.
Yeah.
And for those who have made the move, what kind of improvements have they experienced in their lives since migrating to Spain?
They reported several significant improvements.
Okay.
The most frequently cited was an improvement in personal security,
Okay.
mentioned by 29.2%.
Uh-huh.
This was followed by better access to health education and other public services at 23.8%,
Okay.
and better salaries at 21.2%.
Makes sense.
Improved employment conditions were also a significant factor at 20.2%.
So these responses really highlight those key motivations
They do.
for migration
Yeah.
and the benefits that they've experienced in Spain.
Exactly.
Finally, the report touches on the maintenance of cultural connections.
Right.
What did they find regarding nostalgia
Okay.
and how migrants stay informed about their home country?
Maintaining ties to home appears to be very important.
Uh.
83.6%.
Wow, okay.
Reported consuming nostalgic products from Honduras,
Oh, wow.
and they did this monthly.
What kind of products?
Things like dairy products, basic grains, snacks, coffee.
Interesting.
And when it comes to staying informed about events in Honduras,
Yeah.
social media has become the primary source of news for 54.3% of respondents.
Really?
So that highlights the crucial role of digital platforms in maintaining these connections.
It really does. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's bring it all together.
Okay.
This deep dive into the Central Bank of Honduras report
Yeah.
has provided us with a really comprehensive look at the experiences of Honduran migrants in Spain.
It has.
We've seen the remarkable growth in their population,
We have.
gained insights into their demographics,
Yeah.
understood their motivations for migrating,
Right.
explored their lives in Spain in terms of legal status, employment, and income.
Absolutely. And we've also examined their vital role in supporting families back home through remittances,
Right.
both the financial flows and the sending of goods and services.
Exactly.
The survey really reveals the intricacies of these remittance patterns, from the amount sent and the methods used to who the beneficiaries are and how the support addresses those fundamental needs.
It's a really powerful narrative
It is.
that goes far beyond just simple statistics.
Yeah.
It reveals stories of human resilience, hard work, and enduring connections to their homeland.
It does.
So what are the key takeaways?
Well, if we consider the bigger picture, these findings underscore the significant interconnectedness between Honduras and Spain,
Okay.
not just economically, but also socially and culturally.
Uh-huh.
Remittances from Spain represent a crucial economic support system for many families in Honduras,
Right.
highlighting the impact of migration on the Honduran economy.
Right. And on the other side, that growing Honduran population in Spain
Yeah,
is contributing to the Spanish labor force
absolutely.
and enriching its cultural diversity.
Yeah, definitely.
This report prompts us to consider the broader implications of global migration patterns
It does.
and the ways in which economies and families are linked across international borders.
Yeah,
So much to think
a
about.
lot to consider.
And for you, our listener,
Yeah,
we leave you with this.
okay.
What further questions does this information spark for you
Right.
about the dynamics of migration,
Uh-huh.
the crucial role of economic support networks,
Yeah.
and the power of those cultural connections in our increasingly interconnected world?
It's definitely a complex issue
Because
with global impacts.
this deep dive into the experiences of Honduran migrants in Spain has been brought to you by Portal Mi Empresa por Inversiones Urbanas y Centroamericanas.
Okay.
For exclusive content and to learn more, subscribe to our portal and follow us on our social media channels.
Sounds good.